Maybe we should be the sperms.
Yeah. My head's just a dick. Like, here's Richard.
We're here on Foreplay, now in the midst of our psychedelic horror arc. We did Jacob's Ladder last week. This week is Enter the Void. The following week will be Altered States, and the final week will be Mandy. I will say up front about Enter the Void, this is one of the two films in this arc I have not seen. I have not seen this nor Altered States. I have seen the other two. This is a pretty severe escalation over last week's Jacob's Ladder. So I will warn you that
we weren't fucking around.
Yeah, you weren't. If you have any kind of aversion to any form of trauma, any form at all,
and if you have epilepsy for that matter,
and if you have epilepsy, because,
no joke actually on that front.
Credits
Absolutely.
So if you have sensitivity to flashing lights, do not watch this movie. If you have any kind of standing trauma, all the trauma is in this movie. This movie is trauma porn. Yeah. And so if there was a form of trauma that somebody could have, it is in this movie. So just be careful with it. And also, I would not recommend, if this is your first viewing, indulging in certain substances while watching this film.
You don't need to. The film does it anyway.
It does it for you.
The film does it for you.
But don't do that.
Unless you're on the advanced course.
Unless you're...
And then do that. Although I didn't say that. That's a character who looks like me, playing a character called Thorin on this
That was actually AI Thorin.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't do that.
Only AI Thorin recommends that. Real Thorin does not. So this film is from, what, 2000... Is it 2009? 2009.
Oh, by the way, Monty, that isn't what I should say. That's actually the weirdest thing about the fact that this is an arc I suggested and picked some of the films in, because I can't say I recommend any of these films. Like, I actually feel like I'd be irresponsible to do so, as you say, without an insane list of disclaimers. I have to know, like, what happened to you in your life before, what can you handle. That's why actually Jacob's Ladder, nice little primer. If you had any sort of struggles with that one, you know what? Maybe get ready with the fucking pause button for this one, because it could get real. Yeah, it could get a bit too real for you, this one.
Yeah,
I have to say though, this film, before we just get into it, I'll just say at the absolute outset, this is a film nothing could ever prepare you for. You have never seen anything like this. There's no way to describe the film. Like, by the way, this will be the shittest episode if you don't watch the film to listen to, because no matter what you imagine in your head, it's nothing like. I'm sure we'll get into it, but even just the way it is shot, like we'll start to get into it in a minute. I'll get into it in a minute.
Yeah, so this film was made in English, but it takes place in Tokyo and is made by Gaspar Noé, who is a French director. And
he's Argentinian French or something
Argentinian French or whatever, yeah. He definitely speaks French, works with French. He's also I think he's got like Italian citizenship. Right. He's an very interesting cat, actually, Gaspar Noé.
But what you might not be aware of is that this film is difficult to watch, not only because of the subject material of this film, but it's actually just literally physically hard to watch because it is in first person for a lot of the film, both in the main character Oscar's perspective when he is alive and then him flying around as a ghost when he's dead for most of the movie. The flashbacks are in third person, so it's like part of the movie is Counter-Strike, part of the movie is Fortnite, and so you know you're in a flashback because you're watching from behind his head instead, right? And it also has so much strobing and flashing things that it is.
Yeah.
And also, from the first-person perspective, they include Oscar's blinking. So it's like it's not just that you're seeing
which is still there after he's dead, observing himself.
Here's the thing though, I'll tell you something. In the first scene, I even thought that on the rewatch, Monty, that is initially jarring because you think, why does it keep doing that? You don't sort of like keep remembering that throughout the movie though. I imagine it just adds to the effect of the bizarre POV. Because by the way, even when you say that, people are going to think of all those movies. What's that fucking one? Hardcore Henry or whatever. They're going to think of those. I've seen it. You've never seen a first person film like this before. By the way, let's just start there. the way. This is actually a film where, first of all, this director, what tortures me. I am a fan of this director. He's one of those people. I have the ticket to ride, the season pass. I will watch any film he makes. I'll even go and look up when he does, just a segment in an anthology film that someone made. I'll look up anything because he is a dark genius visionary, and everything he does with his films. The joke is he could never be in Hollywood. Every one of his films is impossibly about fucked up topics. It's about like people who've murdered their own family, people who get raped and then destroy the enemy, psychedelic drug things, literal on-camera sex between people in a love relation. Everything he does just goes so far. But I just think that it's the way he shoots it and how he conceives of the movie is so brilliant. And this film, the idea you could even have by the way, this was filmed on something meant like $13 million budget. I don't even know how this was made in 2009. It is such a technical marvel. I actually feel like you have to draw insane parallels that sound like hyperbole to like 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stargate, Sequel, except that's like the heights of Hollywood. This is a guy working with fucking French film budgets and shit off in Europe, and it is just actually unbelievable. That's why the fact it's about drug experiences is such a great parallel, isn't it?
I mean, also what you have to understand about Gaspar Noé, right? So first of all, I'm like Duncan. I really like this guy. The first movie I saw quite typically was Irreversible, and I've watched all of his stuff.
Hard to recommend any of his films, though, isn't it, Richard? Because you might come off as that's an implication of what you like. You know what I mean? It's hard. Yeah. It's hard, mate.
I think the only one of his I haven't seen is that Lux Eterna he did. I haven't seen that, but anyway, like what you have to understand about Gaspar Noé is, first of all, the reason the drug scenes in this movie work and feel authentic. I mean, very authentic. The opening segment has him smoking DMT.
Oh, those visuals are mega, mate.
Those fractals that are happening
it's really
up there.
On point, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what DMT looks like if you don't smoke enough to go into the beyond, right? If you don't break through. And so this guy knows what he's talking about. Indeed, again, if you just go to his Wikipedia page, it says here, throughout his career, Noé has spoken frequently about his experiences with drugs and his use of substances like ecstasy, LSD, marijuana, DMT, ayahuasca, morphine, amphetamine, poppers, and cocaine.
And that was just one day. The old joke.
Exactly. But here's the other interesting part. Apparently, he's done Datura, which is that
the reference in this film, yeah.
Yeah, which is the insane poisonous.
It's a disassociative, basically. Like they say in the film, you can have whole conversations with people, and the joke is, you see that person, and either they didn't exist, or they go, I wasn't there on Monday, what are you talking about? And you just had an entire imaginary... That's more like in the last episode, what people imagine they're going to have their LSD experience like. Also, by the way, another thing about all of his films, especially in the film Love, is this guy, in another life, just secretly wanted to be some sort of high art porn director. That's not... I'm not even saying that as a meme, though. That's the thing. He treats it really seriously so that's another reason these films could never be in Hollywood. Like he will literally show you people fucking each other just fully openly.
Datura as well, like to anyone who's done this, it is the most insane hardcore. It's hard to imagine there's an upside to it, because obviously I think there are much better and much safer psychedelics to be doing. But if you go, there's a video on YouTube called "The Redditor That Vanished," and basically it was like some guy saying, "Listen, guys, I've got the Datura seeds. I'm gonna do X amount, blah 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 blah," and obviously like never replied again. Like just fucking.
That could be a great horror movie in itself, investigating that, find out what was going on with his mother and that,
Exactly, and then it's like The Vanishing, where you have to take the Datura to I'll only let you know where he is if you do the same amount of drugs. But anyway, so anyone who's done Datura is fucking hardcore. And watching this movie, Gaspar Noé has clearly done these drugs and knows exactly how to capture what those drugs do in a cinematic feeling. Like, look, people used to say 2001 was the quintessential LSD movie. It just isn't. That it's just because of the time it came out. Obviously. When he's going through the fucking time tunnel thing, and all of that, right? Yeah, fair enough. You could probably take a combination of drugs that would give you that, definitely. But it doesn't feel authentic.
All the people who are vertigo, and it's like these are more special effects, man. I know what you mean. This feels like the experience.
Yes, absolutely. And also just a little bit about Gaspar Noé as well. Like Duncan's already set him up nicely. In terms of his output, probably one of the kings of like transgressive cinema. I'd put him up there with Pedro Almodovar, who just does insane movies as well, like with insane themes, obviously as well. Gaspar Noé, much like Pedro Almodovar, they only write their own movies. They write and they direct, and it is exclusively that way throughout their career. He's also kind of got a little bit in common with Todd Solondz, who obviously did like Happiness quite famously, in the sense that
another one that's hard to recommend the movies from, even though they're really good.
Brilliant. Probably the darkest comedy you'll ever watch in your life. With the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman playing some insane compulsive masturbator. And by the way, he's the nicest, fluffiest character in the whole thing. So like there is no topic off limits for Gaspar Noé, and for him to tackle something as insane as this is going to be a nearly 3-hour, if you watch the director's cut rather than the one they tried to desperately salvage, because this made no money whatsoever. There is no way to market a movie like this. You are experiencing someone else's death dream for nearly 3 hours. There's no way.
The joke is, I could imagine this was just only seen by other directors. It's one of those films, you know.
Yeah, probably. But Gaspar Noé, absolutely nothing is off limits for him. And this is the movie, you know, after the success of Irreversible, which in itself is a deeply divisive movie, which I adore. I think it's a fucking great movie. It's a harrowing movie. It's a movie that makes you feel something, like, you know, whether it's repulsion or anger. It really gets into the, you know, the way, quite famously in that movie, it's about it's a rape revenge film, essentially, told out of sequence. So what it ends with is the last shot of the movie is him and the wife, and they're about to have a kid, and you realize, you know, this is what has been destroyed because of all of these wanton acts of violence along the way. The ultimate act of violence being the rape of.
It's also not a great payoff. With even the revenge is as horrifying as the rape. That's how mad this film
correct,
is. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, that's what I mean. When you look at what's been lost to tee up the revenge, there is no catharsis.
No.
It's just a profound sadness. And the way he shot the rape, by the way, probably this isn't making any money this episode on YouTube, because we're gonna have to say lots of awful words, but whatever. The way the rape is filmed is it's just a static shot camera.
And it lasts really
about
long.
9 minutes.
It's
like
really
about
long.
9 minutes.
That's pretty sure that's a hard 10-minute watch, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but Gaspar Noé said he had to make it disgusting. He had to make it a horrifying act of violence you couldn't look away from, because that is what rape is. And so it was very divisive when that movie came out, even though it was really successful.
And it has like Monica Bellucci, fucking Vincent, whatever, Cassell, some massive actors in, which by the way is also how you know everyone fucks with this guy's vision. What's sad is 1 million people reviewing movies in shit newspapers have ruined every soundbite for his movies, because guess what, Monty? His movies are more an experience than a film. They feel like an event. The problem is, a dickhead's ruined those phrases for you for just average movies. It's true with these ones. That's why I say, no joke, I will watch anything this guy puts on film, because when I watch it, I almost forget it is a film. Again, another fucking cliche, sadly. Like, you just enter the world.
Yeah, and you know, look, the reaction to it initially when it came out, I mean, like, people walked out on the screenings at you know, all the film festivals. You know, people absolutely said it is too violent, it is too transgressive to watch. But it was a commercial success. And by the way, his most commercially successful film, and I think it made like $2 million in profit. And so you have to understand, this is the definition of an uncompromising filmmaker. His films are interesting. His films are unflinching. His films are difficult. But
By the way, that's also how you manage your career. You take your big home run, and that's when you go, I'll make the impossible film nobody will watch. That'll definitely not make money. That's what you do right on the back of that. That's the only way you're ever going to get that money.
We call it the reverse James Cameron.
Yeah, they only let you do that once. They only let you do this once, I'm telling you right now.
James Cameron didn't even shoot his shot. He was just like, but what if I made trash instead?
I know.
So basically, I mean, like, but it is kind of interesting, isn't it? That Gaspar Noé, he followed up. Irreversible comes out in 2002. He waited 7 years to make his next film, and it was this. That's who you're fucking with, right? Like, you know what I mean? That's who you're fucking with. He's like, right, we've had a modest commercial success with that revenge rape movie. Go away, take some time, enjoy it, enjoy the plaudits, enjoy the fact you've made one of the most transgressive, difficult films in cinematic history, and then just let us know what you're making next. And, okay, this is what we're making next. A 3-hour-long death dream. Where the acting and dialogue are irrelevant, and I'm just going to bombard you with a psychedelic experience and end it with which, as we'll get to, a close-up of an ejaculating penis while I follow the sperm through to an egg
which
and then
sounds
reincarnate
shit, but
at
it's
the end.
actually amazing.
And also, I mean, like I said, this is porn, more or less. It is a combination of drug porn.
There are pornographic elements, yeah.
Trauma porn, where it's like it is pornographic in its treatment of trauma.
I would disagree slightly with the characterization of pornography, and I'll explain why. I think to call something pornographic is to imply it lacks artistic merit. Always, I always think of pornography as something that only.
That's why I see him as a high class. This is like the guy who wanted to be the Stanley Kubrick of pornography.
Sure.
Even though that sounds absurd, because who would?
I do think this film has a lot of artistic merit, but also. I think that it is excessive at times, even in. I think to the detriment of what it's trying to do.
Everything he does is excessive. Like that,
exactly.
goes without saying.
Yeah,
that is what no way means.
He only goes to 11, Monty. He only goes to 11.
But
I'll use a classic example that you might like. If people don't know, the reason why comics became amazing from the 80s onwards is because they had their own codes that you couldn't. Comics code, where much like the Hays Code, Monty likes, you couldn't show certain things. So what happened was either you had to wait till the 80s till they started to break that, or classically you go to European comics, and European comics didn't have that at all, mate. They could have fucking and killing people and drug you, and so it allowed.
Which is why Jodorowsky had the cool shit earlier.
It allowed you to show these stories you couldn't even imagine could be in a comic, and you go, you can do that with a comic. Like that's what this film's like, mate. This could never be a Hollywood movie in any context.
Yes, but I do think that this movie's very interesting to think about, and it's very interesting to watch. But I do feel as though if it had pulled back just a little bit. And we'll talk about how I think it could have done that. But if it had pulled back just a little bit, I think you don't lose the impact. And I think it's just a tighter film and like more artistically clear as a result. But there is the counter argument is that by experiencing some of these things repetitively, it elicits a stronger, potentially emotional reaction.
It's also the film, isn't it? You'll experience these things. You'll go down the dark turn, and then the only escape is reincarnation at that point in time.
Or a good place to start, I think. A good place to start for all of us is this might surprise some people that we're characterizing it as a psychedelic horror, because it isn't a horror in any traditional sense. And yet there are elements to this film that are so horrific, and indeed the existential nature of of experiencing someone else's death. There are parts of this movie that I think are horrifying in ways that no other movie can be. And in particular, there's like a couple of bits that definitely like resonate with me. One being when he's initially killed. And by the way, look, let's get this out the way, right? The performances in this movie suck. The dialogue
doesn't have very many good
sucks.
actors. No, not at all.
No, but that's fine. It's not about that, right?
Yeah,
and then
all.
also the idea you could just be like having an interaction with the Japanese police and they're gonna go full fucking NYPD on you
and also
and shoot you through the door.
Absurd.
You're already trapped inside a toilet. There'd be no reason to
the
fire
cops,
like a
the
shotgun.
cops would, in Asia, the cops wouldn't even have guns. Okay, like they wouldn't even have guns for that. Anyway,
so we get it out of the way. But
wait.
what I will say
also,
is,
the characters suck.
Yeah, they're all broad archetypes, but I think by design. But ultimately, he's not interested in.
No, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly. The story isn't about the humdrum of their lives and a drug deal gone wrong and someone dying. It's not about that. But anyway, the initial scene when he's like lying on the floor and he's like saying like, "Oh wow, like this is fucked up," like, you know, and then he's like, "Wow, I can't feel my arms. Oh my god, I'm like dying," and he's like having the realization that he's actually dying. Like, you know, I had a pretty fucking gnarly drug overdose one time in a past life. You know what I mean? A long time ago. And trust me, like, yeah, you're gonna lie there and you're gonna feel a certain way and you're gonna feel yourself slipping away, and it is fucked up. Like, and that is that. He's got that. He's had I think he's overdosed at some point, probably when he was doing the skag.
Oh, sure.
Because he's got that totally on point. The absolute helplessness. But with just you and your internal monologue.
I'm still alive. I'm dying. It's real. I'm actually dying. Am I dead? None of this is real. I'm just floating. What'll happen to her? My sister. I need to help her. Please help me. I need your help. I need your help.
As you're eventually kind of...
Oh, yeah, we forgot to mention that, Tita. It's not just POV. You are actually hearing his inner voice. That's my hand with my blood on it. Oh, my God. Well, I can't die now, though. Like,
also
that,
overlapping
whack,
as well.
But again, works in a really, really interesting way.
But because it's not just like... It's like multiple thoughts all at once.
Yes.
So it's like he overlaps, you know, like your internal monologue does, you know, like everyone's... apparently some people don't have an internal monologue, which I find that horrifying.
We call them
That's
Eberts.
A horror movie.
Why would you reduce him to the most subhuman trash? Just because he didn't like a few movies that I enjoyed, you know.
Listen, no, he said the thing. I mean, he must take his beatings forever.
I would feel less bad for him if we hadn't read all that shit in the David Lynch arc where he was like actively in real life antagonizing David Lynch like a complete piece of shit.
Plus, to be fair, Monty, like this movie, he is actually hanging around these episodes and we're channeling him, and that's why we keep referencing him all the time, you know. That's until he can either choose to be reincarnated or ascend.
Do you think the ghost of Roger Ebert is watching me have sex?
I mean,
we could do more than that if you watch this movie, mate. This is
I know, by the way.
Is one of my kids Roger Ebert?
Yeah, exactly. Now we're really getting into it. Now we're really getting into it. But so that definitely stood out, and so I think ultimately the movie is so off kilter and so distressing, and like it is a horror to me. It felt that way. I watched it like last night, getting ready for this, and I was like, man, this does make me... It didn't make me feel like I was watching as they call it on the, you know, it's a psychedelic melodrama. Like, nah, this is a scary movie. It's the fucking ultimate horror, you know, the horror of what happens to me when I die, what happens to the people I care about after I die. Will I see them? What happens? Where am I going to go? Like, am I going to float around? What do I end up a ghost? Is it something beyond that, extrasensory to that?
Also, we talked about the Tibetan Book of the Dead in the last episode as well, but obviously that is central to this in that it is literally described what happens post-death, and that is what happens in this movie.
Essentially, the Alex character, when he walks down the stairs, describes what is going to happen in the film. You'll just think it's just flavor text, just talking while we're on the way to a club. No, that is literally what is going to play out, and you will see that over and over and over.
Basically, when you die, the spirit leaves your body. Actually, at first you can see all your life like reflected in a magic mirror, and then you start floating like a ghost. And you can see anything that's happening around you. You can hear everything, but you can't communicate with the world of the living. And then you see these lights, all these different lights. of all different colors. These lights are the doors that pull you into higher planes of existence. But most people, they actually like this world so much that they don't want to be taken away. So that's when the whole thing turned into a bad trip. The only way out is to get reincarnated.
So yeah, they literally just filmed the process that is supposed to take place in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. But a lot of Tibetan art, if you've seen the paintings, the tankas, is terrifying, by the way. Like, they believe you seeing all kinds of demons and shit during this process. The demons are scary in Tibetan Buddhism. Like, they are very terrifying, multi-armed monsters with huge fangs covered in flames, you know? And a lot of Tibetan art deals with the Book of the Dead and the visions that you are supposed to have. And there is no other way to interpret them other than horrifying. They are intended to be scary.
It's why I said, like, the reason you had to make this movie on the back of, like, wow, this new fresh director with a great film that's made a lot of money with good actors in. The reason why you had to do this is because you'd never sell this script. Like, if you said to someone, right, I'm going to make a movie where it's about, like, what it's actually like to take really powerful psychedelics and to die and then re-experience your life.
POV.
You'd just go like, how are you going to do that? Well, that's why I keep saying the technical feat of this movie is actually fucking mind-blowing. Like, I can't even conceive. Put it this way, what's funny is, simultaneously, it feels like it's very drawn out and really slow, but here's just what happens within the first 53 minutes of the film. He takes DMT, he walks to a nightclub in Japan, so you get all the neon lights and all that vibe and that heat and that buzzing sound. By the way, we'll talk later, because me and Monty obviously got the whole career experience that reminds me of. Yeah. Then he gets shot through a door by a policeman. He sees his sister being fucked, enters into the guy doing it and experiences fucking her, does a life review in which he sees a car crash that kills his parents, then fucks someone's mum. We're like 53 minutes in, there's an hour 40 or something to go for this motherfucker. Buckle up. And by the way, there are no stops on this train. You are going to the final destination. No. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the other aspect to it. Instead of it just being the cheesy, like, the life flashes before your eyes, what this does to create that extra level of keeping you off kilter is it shows you things completely out of sequence. Sometimes there are flashbacks to him as a child, so you understand why him and his sister have the relationship they do.
They cut at one point between him sucking his mate's mum's tit to him being breastfed by his mom.
Being breastfed as a kid.
That's like a smash cut almost. And by the way, that's not even weird why you're that part into the movie. You just go, just keep going.
You're just like, but my favorite cut in the movie, my favorite piece of editing is he back when he's like reviewing what it is to be a child, he opens that door and he sees his parents having sex, right, which is like quite a common childhood experience for working class people, because you hear noise, you're curious as a kid, you're living in these tiny little houses, so you open the door and you catch them and blah, blah, blah. But then as he closes the door, through the window that's now in the door, he can see his friend having sex with a woman, and now he's an adult and he's at a party, and then he walks off. It's like, it is wild, and it is designed to tell this story about why he has this attachment to his sister, why he made this promise that we
even
will
that
always
blood pact,
be together.
It tells you the whole film as well. Yeah, exactly. Correct. Will you come back? We'll never die. We're immortal. All that shit. Yeah, it's all there. It's one of those ones that'll seem confusing, but just listen. Genuinely, just listen to what they're telling you.
Yeah, exactly. This is one of these things where it's like you just throw it up on the screen, you turn out the lights, you sit, you watch, you listen, you put your phone in another room, and it will all be revealed to you. And another part to this as well that I really liked as well is later on, apart from the fact he sees his own autopsy, right? Just like, that's also crazy.
And his own cremation.
He sees his sister's aborted fetus.
Oh my God!
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Right, but then there's the bit where after he's been cremated, he talks to his friend, and his friend is seemingly talking to him, going, "Go on, close your eyes. Close your eyes and imagine where your ashes are. I bet you'll find your ashes, won't you, you little cunt? Go on. I bet you can go there. I bet you can go to your ashes. The spirit closes his eyes, teleports through one of them like strobe tubes, and then he is there where his ashes are, which are in his sister's house, and he's confronted with the unrelenting grief his sister feels.
By the way, this would be a
the
dope
ashes
video
aren't
game.
a comfort.
What a
Oh,
sick
She
video
pours
game,
them.
honestly.
She gets rid of them.
Close your eyes and think about it. If you're lucky, you might find your ashes. Go on, little cunt. Go on. Close your eyes. Think about it. Go on.
Yeah, he has to watch his own sister get rid of his own ashes because she can't stand to have him.
Oh, by the way,
in
one of my
house.
favourite moments is, because remember, at the first part, it's just, things that happened in your life and moments that are key, and we're filling in the little blanks here and we're drawing connections. It's when it starts to go to the dark hellscape, and there's the part where it's almost like he wasn't dead, and he's and he's come back, and then they're all going, "That's not my brother back then." They're all attacking him and shit. Like, bro, this shit is suffocating. This film is so fucking full on. It's so full on and raw.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. Like, I mean, that you are going through so many different experiences, and like as Monty says, sometimes you'll just relive the experience again. Like, which by the way, that's how memories are, right?
You're going to
don't know
see
what
the car you're going to see this horrific car crash and go, "Oh,
Like
bloody
four
hell, that was
times,
hard to
3
enjoy."
times.
They just keep showing it from different angles.
And for
keep
longer
experiencing
every
it.
time too. I mean,
What we have to do is go back. Just over and over again.
And this is, look, I think there's two different arguments you could make for this movie. One of which is that it does have to be this long, and it does have to give you the extended DMT fractal experiences and like
Time dilation, everything,
the flying around Tokyo for like just straight up minutes on end, just like swirling around. And
which looks
spinning around.
fantastic, though.
It does
look really good.
It does, but also, this film could be significantly shorter. But
by the way, how weird is it as well that everyone loves that one scene in John Wick. The whole film's filmed like that, mate, from like this weird above position when he's there. The whole thing, though, even that adds a weird element to every scene. You sort of you're a voyeur looking in on the scene, aren't you?
Like, we'll talk about the cinematography because that is probably the strongest part of this movie overall. But my issues with this movie and like why I call it trauma porn is it just is. It becomes almost laughable how unlucky these characters are. If you think that Jacob in Jacob's Ladder was unlucky, you haven't seen Unlucky yet, and it just kind of.
And then wait for Mandy, mate. Because I'll tell you what, he was having a bad fucking week, wasn't he? We'll get to that one though.
But it becomes. I think Mandy has more black black comedic elements.
Eventually it does,
intentionally.
It's got Nicolas Cage in it. Where it does automatically have to.
It does like kind of break through to be funny at times, which this movie doesn't. And for me, it's like it becomes.
I don't think it is. I don't think for a second Gaspar Noé thought, we'll just insert a little bit of like.
But Mandy is funny
humor in here.
at times. But this film. It's almost, it becomes absurd and unbelievable, and I think for me it takes me out of it because of just the number of traumas. Like by the time I got to like the abortion and the fetus on the tray, I was just like, come on, man, like this is because it oversteps from being like shocking and making you introspectively think about what's going on to just being like, come on, like.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Monty. In a way, he is also rope-a-doping you because you're like, I've seen it all now. Yeah. You haven't seen a direct head-on dick go inside, jizz, you become the jizz, fly in, enter in, decide, I will be reborn as my own sister's child. You know what, Monty? I tell you what, it did sort of end in a.
No, but hang on.
There was still one last.
No. Wait.
There's a serious point. There's a serious point here, Monty, and that is that, right? I don't think
or even the scene where that guy's being forced to suck dick in the elevator.
Yeah. So no.
There's a lot of shit to see.
So here's the counter argument to that is like obviously the text and the implication of the Book of the Dead, much like Jacob's Ladder, where we also talked about the Book of the Dead, is to actually confront these attachments and like work through the traumas that you've had. So re-experiencing them or showing the almost maximum amount of possible human trauma, you could argue has value. I would argue that it is too much. I don't need to see that car crash like 4 times, and it is at the detriment of the movie because the movie feels unfocused. And after you see these things too many times, it has the opposite effect of desensitizing you to these things. I felt very desensitized by the 3rd or 4th time I had seen the car crash.
My counterpoint, and by the way, I think you probably are meant to feel desensitized.
That could even be the effect you're featured on.
That's how I feel about it. But because it also makes the more shocking aspects of what you're seeing resonate more. And I think ultimately, right, the abortion scene is really graphic. You literally see, the fucking she's in the stirrups and the tools are going in, and then you obviously see the aftermath of the fetus in a little kidney-shaped bowl afterwards, and it zooms in on it and then zooms out. But I think the purpose of that is to ultimately set up the end and why for the character. Yep. For the character,
there is a resolution. The fact that the sister finally likes his friend, and then he becomes the child of theirs. It's kind of interesting.
I don't think that is gratuitous. I think it is ultimately saying that any woman that's had to go through an abortion. By the way, remember, she was a stripper. She didn't want the baby. She was in this fucked up situation. She's been flown out to a foreign country. And they don't have a lot of money. He's making money by ultimately dealing drugs on the side. To even earn the money for her to have the ticket, he had to be a gigolo, essentially, fuck somebody's mother to get the scratch. So she is in dire straits, and it's one of those like classic abortions, like where it's like it is born out of like almost a financial necessity rather than anything to do with how you might feel about wanting to have a child or anything like that. And so to linger on that scene is ultimately what makes the end scene, if indeed anything could be called like a resolution or catharsis or positive in this movie, that has to be shown. For why am I watching for 20 minutes his sister get railed by his friend and then going into cum cam and seeing her get impregnated? Well, because look, she's had abortions. Like, she, who knows if her situation might have been different, she might have kept that baby. Now she's having another baby. There is something sort of, it's fucked up and kind of beautiful at the end, because as he's floating in and out of the room while he's watching his sister get railed, and I'm being really reductive by saying it like that.
No, you're not.
But it is a Gaspar Noé movie, so he'd probably appreciate it. Remember, he actually comes in. They're doing it in what they call like a love hotel, which is like this seedy little
and there are
room
tons of them in Japan and Korea,
neon.
by the way, tons of these.
Yeah.
If people don't know, by the way, actually, we'll address some of this later, but I'll very quickly address that. Basically, because the people live at their home until they get married, they don't have their own apartments when they're like 28.
Yeah.
That means even when you're like 28, you can't actually just bring your girlfriend home where your parents are in a small cramped apartment and start fucking. So what you do is even though you would think in the West this is some like prostitute, no, you sometimes take like your girlfriend to this love hotel, and it's like just a room you use to fuck for a few hours or whatever, and then you go to whatever. So it's not, it's actually like not even that weird a concept, but obviously this is a really seedy version of it, yes.
Yeah, and so as he's like coming in and out of the room and watching what's happening, and by the way, that itself is dragged out because it isn't shot chronologically. They're in the middle of fucking. He comes out. They're about to start fucking. He comes out again. They start fucking. So it's crazy, but like it focuses on the word love, and so that's what he's seeing flashing in neon. And that's ultimately, I think, what makes his soul decide the way to fulfill his promise to always be with his sister is ultimately to enter, although it is left ambiguous, to enter into what is essentially the child and to be reborn and to untether himself from all of these
I do think
experiential things that are happening.
The birth scene at the end, it's deliberately left fuzzy so you don't know who the mother is, and so one interpretation is that he is reincarnated as his sister's child. Another interpretation is that he actually is just, that is because none of this movie is chronological, that's just his own birth in the first place. Right.
Yeah.
The first
and it's
time.
A time loop. That's another way.
It's not even necessarily a time loop. Like, he's flashing back to all of these other scenes of his life, including him being an infant previously. So this could just end with a flashback of literally Oscar being born. Right. He could be born. He could have just resurrected somewhere else. You know, it's intentionally left vague so that it's interesting to think about, and there's multiple interpretations. It's not explicitly. It wasn't like we saw his sister at the end, right? And she was like, I'll name him Oscar. You know.
But for me, it's the only thing that really makes sense thematically. Like, for this film to be about something, which it doesn't have to be, right? But for the movie to be about something and to say something, I think that is the ending that would canonically make sense to me. And ultimately, it's why I think the contrast of the abortion and, you know, like, that could have been someone else's entry, another soul's entry into
this also,
the universe that no longer is open to them because it's in a kidney jar. You know?
I think that there's another viable interpretation, which is that this is all a dream he is having as he is dying on the floor, and he's having the flashbacks. And
funny you should say that, because Gaspar Noé, who he does this all the time, he is a little contrarian asshole who swats away his own successes, and people have like asked him about it, and he just says there's a quote where he said something like, the whole movie is just about some druggie that like read the Book of the Dead just before he got shot and was stoned, and it's like just his own dream. And so he doesn't want to, like, he never engages with any of the deeper meanings of his own films. Like,
that's fine, but I don't think it loses meaning by being this way. But we know factually, because he has a conversation with his friend Alex, that he is like very high. He is tripping when he goes to the bar where he is killed. So we know, and he is immediately told on their walk over to the bar about, you know, the Tibetan Book of the Dead and all of the things that will be happening to him. And so I do think that there's a viable interpretation where he is dying, tripping, and has just heard about the Book of the Dead, and so is having some sort of death hallucination that is about the thing that he was just talking about.
Yeah. Which I hate that interpretation. I really do.
I don't think the movie loses meaning by having that interpretation.
I think it loses pretty much all of its meaning. Actually, I think like that, yeah, absolutely. I think like if you just reduce the protagonist to a retard that like because he smoked DMT and went out and got shot. And he's like going, well, wouldn't it be cool, man, if it was like that book that I half read? Let's just do a 3-hour swirl around it about me imagining what that would be like. Then the movie is garbage. Actually.
No. So I disagree because
I also don't even know if he even is being serious, Rich. I think he's one of those trickster archetype guys trying to fuck with you and tell you some crazy angle, you know.
Is he on some Loki arc right now?
Yeah, I don't think I don't think he is being serious like totally. But I mean, he could be serious in that that's what happened. I disagree that it takes the meaning out of the movie because the work, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is not being stripped of meaning in this way. In fact, you could make a Jungian argument that this resonates with him so deeply at an unconscious level that he is experiencing the truth that is represented within the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So I don't think you have to say it's meaningless. I think you can say maybe there is some eternal existential meaning that he taps into at the moment of death, which I think is very interesting and is very meaningful.
Yeah, you see, I can't get on board with that. I just can't. I think it just has to be like, it cannot be he is imagining what his soul would experience. For me, the movie has to be this is what his soul experiences, because otherwise it's just not a very satisfying narrative. What little narrative there is in the film is, or rather, I shouldn't say that. There's a lot of narrative in the film. It's just that it's told in an unconventional
a Buddhist or Hindu approach to this would be to say that you say it doesn't have meaning if he's imagining it. Well, the world is illusions, and the only thing that exists is your imagination. So, is there a difference? Would be, I think, the question.
Sure, but you will notice at no point. Well, okay, I wouldn't say he goes through a deconstruction of reality when he's dead. The reality still holds up. He's still able to see the past accurately.
But indeed, that is the problem that results in his reincarnation, right? Well, he doesn't ascend to the next plane. He is still trapped in the cycle of reincarnation. Because he is attached to all of these things.
But I mean,
it's the opposite. It's the opposte ending of Jacob's Ladder, right? It's the bad ending.
He doesn't.
And amazingly, we didn't intend this. These all sort of end up being quite interesting.
It's the same
parallels, don't they? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, put it this way: would Jacob's Ladder have been improved by having cum cam? I don't know.
And really, Jacob just becomes Jezebel's kid.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think there's something to be said about, the being able to kind of almost enforce a positive reincarnation, that he was at least as futile as his death was, because again, narratively, what he learns as he's floating around is that the son of the mother he was fucking for the money for the ticket for his sister set him up with the drug deal by tipping off the police. That's why he's dead. He feels guilty about it.
Actually, the worst part of the movie and the story.
Yeah, for sure. Because here's
the thing, Richard. We don't even need an explanation. That's the annoying part. They waste so much time in this movie being like, and actually it was this other guy who tipped off the police and then it caused this tragedy. All of that is you don't need that in the plot at all.
But we're also seeing more trauma there because we're seeing like his family relationship down. Yeah. By the way, don't worry, in the end, he certainly gets his comeuppance.
But it doesn't add additional...
He's in an elevator sucking dick. Think about it.
It doesn't actually add impact or meaning to this film. Like, this film needs to be streamlined in certain ways.
I like the way Monty's the editor coming in like, I'm going to trim this right down. That's got a few scenes.
I would be that asshole in this movie.
You have to understand, Gaspar Noé never met a cutting room floor, Monty. He wanted more of this shit.
Put it this way, I've talked about this before, so I don't mind talking about it again. I did one trip on ayahuasca where I was able to visit parts of my life, but the difference, basically, it was like laid out before me. I could go anywhere to any point of my life to date, not the future. Couldn't go into the future, obviously, but any moment in my life. It was all laid out. I could see it all. And I had a limited amount of time where I could go to it and visit it. But the kicker was when I got there, I couldn't experience it from my point of view. I could only experience it from the point of view of other people that witnessed that moment. And what that did, it was like essentially like an empathy bomb. Because you could understand every time you had been an asshole. You could understand every time, like, you thought you were being cool, but it was really hurtful. Or actually, you could experience almost like their embarrassment and shame for you that you didn't get at the time. It was very illuminating because these memories were accurate. You understand? It wasn't like these weren't imagined memories. This was my life. It was just I could now see it through other people's eyes. And this lasted for like, I don't know, it felt like fucking a long time, like hours and hours. I don't even know realistically how long it would have been. But that's what I think is also not realistic about this movie. It is important when presented with the opportunity to understand how one's actions impact on people, I think it is important to take some time to reflect on that. And that's why I think actually him watching, oh, I thought this guy was my friend and he set me up and that's the reason I'm dead, but he kind of feels
You
guilty
almost
about
see
it.
the reason
And
for
now
everything. You see the reason why his sister's with that guy, why his friend's hanging around and always mentioning his sister, why that guy set him up, but then what happens to that guy and he's haunted by it afterwards, then what becomes of them all, and then how even there's a positive resolution.
His actions had the consequences, and it is only in this sort of ephemeral, death-like state.
It's not that I'm confused about these points. It's that I don't think it makes the strongest movie. To have
By the way,
all
speaking of like transgressive elements and experiences that are really fucked up, how about like how dark just the ambience is of every time he visits that drug dealer who has, by the way, that sort of methed out look to him, where his whole thing basically is warned by his friend is like he's going to try and fuck you and then wipe shit on the back of your head, so watch out. And then that whole time the guy's sort of, we'll figure out payment later. There's a really sinister thing,
and it's like an opium den where people are just
listen, Monty.
out.
And there's every scene that he goes there, the same Asian guy is slumped.
Yeah.
And then in one scene, he's like picking him up almost like a mother would with a baby to feed it. Like, come on, get your coke. Come on, it's not up it goes. And then it's like, and then there's another guy just laid there like, I'm a degenerate German fucking expat. It's this, even that is just so brooding. And like, by the way, even if you haven't had that experience like that, you immediately have. You just had it during this movie, by the way. I also wanted to bring something up because I actually thought this would be fun for Monty because I saw this film when it first came out. By the way, I feel sad for anyone. I didn't see it on the cinema, but I have a sick home cinema set up. If you haven't, I feel really bad because you won't appreciate how sick these visuals are. Again, the ayahuasca visuals. It reminds me, there's a film that's not as good, but has great visuals called Blueberry, which has ayahuasca visuals in that's also amazing, like super 3D effect. Also has Vincent Cassel in bizarrely, just as a connection there. 6 degrees separation from Kevin Bacon or whatever on that one. But I thought for Monty, one thing I hadn't experienced when I saw this film was, if you have lived in Korea, or similarly, obviously a lot of people are expats to Japan, maybe certain places in China if you're in Shanghai or Beijing, the whole experience of like a few things. I want to talk a bit with Monty and see his thoughts on this because so many things just instantly feel like you're there, like you had this experience, like that whole thing at the beginning where it's a hot night, you've got the windows open, everything's neon, everything's buzzing. Even at 3 or 4 in the morning, you could go out and you could get sex, drugs, you could party, you could meet your friends. Also, that whole thing that when you are the expat, you're never really totally connected to the local people, and you're always this foreigner. And so what's weird is you do all sort of cling together in these fucked up makeshift family. The joke is we all did this as an esports family, is the joke of it all. And then there is this sense of like desperation below it all, and plus the whole thing of how are you going to hustle, because there's a weird phenomenon that happens when you're out there, which is everyone who's gone there has gone there for some reason. They're either running away from something or they're seeking something. And when you're out there, it's almost like how long can you stay out there? And that's why the esports example is a great one, isn't it, Monty? Because certain people we thought would be there forever have already gone back. Some people last 10 years. Some people go out back after 2. Some people come back again. But that whole thing of sort of like, oh, if I had the money, I'd fly my sister out. Or, oh, when are you going to go back? You've only got this little loose circle of friends. I always say it feels like if you imagine where your home is, it feels like you're at some outpost at the edge of the empire, at the edge of the world itself, where there's all this alien stuff surrounding you. And then also, I'd just throw this out there, like, I do think the whole aspect of like, there's just something, you're never fully fit when you're there. There's something always that is slightly off. And there is always this implication that you could always put the foot wrong or go through the wrong door or talk to the wrong person. And it could derail your whole life. It could, even though a minute earlier you were just a dilettante, having fun.
Well, it's also the absurdism thing, because you will never fully understand the environment in which you're in. So if you go through the wrong door for absolutely no reason, you could get your entire life fucked up.
Yes. And by the way, this is actually a real example. Another thing that's very realistic is, spoiler, I love weed. Never smoked weed in Korea because, spoiler, they will fuck your life up if you have weed. And so I could totally imagine immediately, Monty, if I had have found a dealer, I imagine he'd be a pretty sinister person who had pretty high stakes as to what he might want you to do or what sort of people would be around him. So even all of this rung very, like, by the way, I can tell Gaspar Noé's gone and done this stuff. It just seems like it's obvious.
Japan is very similar, by the way. Like,
sure.
I mean, even I would question that a drug dealer of that scope could even exist in Japan. I mean, maybe I'm just being naive, but it is very, very hard to acquire these drugs in East Asian countries because the penalties are so severe. And especially enough to deal would be my main that's what kind of breaks the believability of this for me. It's just hard. It's so hard to get that amount of volume in. Maybe you could do it for yourself, but not at that level. So anyway, it's neither here nor there. But and like also to be so blasé about that drug usage, I think it would be you'd have to have, or the dealing as well. It would be much more locked down. I think it just purely,
especially when you stand
cautious.
out anyway, because he doesn't speak a word of Japanese, does he? Well, barely any. And but also I think it's interesting because it doesn't.
Oh, by the way,
really
that's
shy
one
away
thing quickly to say though, Richard. That's one other thing that this is why I wanted to set up the fact that it's so illegal there. Because guess what? I hope nobody watches this movie and does go like Monty, like, oh, how unlucky. Mate, this is actually, if there was karma, this is what you'd get. Like, for example, you just get a Japanese girl who's never taken drugs and you get her onto drugs. By the way, something that there will destroy your life. Like, that will lead you down the path. You'll be a prostitute eventually. You'll be in prison. You'll be dead.
But to be so uncautious just to walk up to a stranger and be like, you want drugs in Japan, I think is kind of ridiculous. But anyway, to go.
But like he literally says to her, like this was the point I was gonna make. He literally says to her, like, remember the time before alcohol, and then you did it, and then you were over the threshold. He's like, well, now you just do that with drugs.
Drugs?
Yeah, do you take drugs?
No.
Never once have you taken drugs?
Never once.
Never once.
Never once. But I like alcohol.
Yeah, so you like alcohol, then you like drugs. It's like one step, then the next step.
One step, yeah.
And it's like, what a fucking piece of shit.
I know.
Well, I mean,
he's literally on that gateway shit.
He is a crazy junkie, obviously. So I'm not a junkie. Literally, while he's about to just.
By the
do
way,
a bunch
I
of
also love
DMT.
that. By the way, can confirm that is indeed what you're saying to yourself whenever you do it. Whenever you get to the bottom of that little coke bag. Listen, I haven't got a problem. I can just start any time on. I'm not one of those coke heads. Now, you got any more?
I really don't have a problem with like most drugs, but like, look, I think psychedelics can be very powerful tools of transformation, and I fully support.
I wouldn't go to the club on them personally.
Yeah, I fully support the use of psychedelics in treatment for PTSD that have proved very effective. And for like actual personal journeys, right? But the way that ancient cultures used these drugs was all ritually based and occasional, and you can tell that they're very powerful tools, and you should not be using them to go out to a shitty bar in
remember,
Japan
Monty,
every night.
it's not even just that he does DMT. He says on the stairs he already took pills. It's implied it's like
LSD. He said a tab.
LSD,
so
sorry.
yes, LSD,
it's implied he took LSD earlier, like almost like the chip's wearing down a bit. So then he's like, right, time to pump it up with some DMT. And this guy is just a fucking. He's just a degenerate.
And you will fry your brain because these are tools that have been like used. But for thousands of years, sometimes in the case of things like ayahuasca, not manufactured things like LSD, to create shamans, to have profound personal experiences, and they were used in controlled environments, and they were not used recreationally constantly. Your brain is not intended to have that experience every fucking day. Like, that's insane.
No.
I'll tell you one area he is unlucky though. He didn't finish reading the Tibetan Book of the Dead before he died.
I know.
So
probably should have done.
You shouldn't have fucking put that off, mate. A couple of days extra reading.
Do I have to turn into cum or something? I don't know. We'll just wait.
I do forget that last chapter.
So
it gets well. I know.
So I do think like just the experience of being a foreigner is really accurately portrayed in this as well, because you are. I've been to Tokyo. I've not lived in Tokyo, but I have lived in Seoul. And these are some of the Earth's mega cities. They are East Asian, somewhat culturally similar cultures. And you are, the experience of being a foreigner there is you are in these massive megalopolises where you can easily get lost. There is,
and you can get anything.
You get it. There's a.
I always tell people it feels like another life, mate. Because Monty, I really could, no joke. I could do my show with you, Summoning Insight, which we had to do late at night. I would finish at like 4 a.m. I would just go. You know what? Don't really feel like I'm on that buzz of doing a show. I'd just walk out to if people know Hongdae, where there's all like the fucking clubs. I'd go to the club. I'd meet someone. Then there'd be a foreigner. You go hop to a bar. You get some food. You were like, what is this world? This isn't the fucking world I come from.
Yeah, it never stops. You can just go out and drink 24/7 and nobody cares at all. They'll constantly serve you.
And unless you do something crazy like this, you get away with it because you're a foreigner too. You're sort of allowed that weird space, aren't you?
And it is like going down the rabbit hole too. There's constant new doors that you can open, and the little room that is cool that has a dancing going on under the black light.
And someone will offer you an option to go to the bathhouse or something extra if you want. Everything's available.
So, but also there's the othering that happens to you as well, which is shown in this, where the Japanese girls are interested in him, and it's exploitative both ways. His friend Alex says, "Why are you fucking that old foreigner when you could at least be fucking an old Japanese lady because you want to experience the mystique of the other?" But it goes the other way too, where women will hunt you down in these countries.
Well, that scene in that scenario.
Like, have you ever slept with a white guy?
He obviously wants to pick up the hot girl in the group, but he just instantly is stuck with whatever, the one with glasses or whatever, because her whole just like she just wants to date a white guy, presumably. But that's real. That's a real phenomenon. Now, listen, I'll say that some of you were just going to go there like, right, where are you all? Like, listen, you have to have some fucking game. You know what I mean?
Not much. I'll be real though.
Okay, true.
But there is that thing where these people are. Just like you are there to have a different experience, they use you because they are not somewhere else to have that experience in proxy, and so they don't have any desire to get to know you. They don't have any desire to have a relationship with you. In fact, the relationship due to language barrier is impossible fundamentally. But they do want to just like go out there and.
You're exotic.
It's the exoticism. And you see that portrayed in here as well. And also similarly, you see the kind of expatriate drive to form these communities. It's not like Oscar would be messing around with Victor's mom if they were in the West. Like that wouldn't be happening. It's only happening
even that
because
thing,
it's
Monty.
there.
He isn't a total cock. The reason he has to still be friends with that guy is because, first of all, the Alex guy actually is the best guy in the movie, even though, yes, he's trying to fuck your sister. But you know what? That's the compromise. You haven't got a big selection of people to choose from. You have to choose who your friends are from the few people that you're encountering, who you form the relationships with, right?
Yeah. Yep. And, I will say, like, obviously, when I've been in Korea and spent a lot of time mostly with non-Korean esports people because we had our own little community, that was by necessity of the language. I have been the foreigner I've lived in several different countries over the course of my life. But, when I lived in Ireland, when there wasn't a language barrier, well, there kind of was, but you know what I mean. Sure. If you've been to the Gaeltacht.
Ironically, another country that also told you Yankee go home. But by reference.
When I was there, I very deliberately refused to spend time with other Americans because I wanted to have a different cultural experience. And I was very successful in that. The other people I knew who were American there would spend all time with each other. They would invite me to do things. And
people did that,
I would say no. Because I came there to live and experience Ireland. And it took me a while because Irish people tend to be closed off to non-Irish people. They're a culture where if you didn't grow up with them, you're kind of forever shut out of those friends groups. Sure. So I had to try really hard. But the result of that was now I have some lifelong Irish friends that are fantastic. And the other people that I was there at college with don't have those people, right? And so I had to, but it was high effort. And it's even higher effort if you try and do this in East Asia because the languages are obviously very difficult for most Westerners to speak. But even if you what people who I know who live in Japan will say is that even if you become fluent in Japanese, you are always gaijin forever. You are always the foreigner. And what they'll do is they'll be like, haha, you speak Japanese. How quaint. And then they'll be like, they'll like you for it, but you will never be Japanese ever. Like ever.
By the way, I've got a very quick anecdote, just because it'll be one of those law things that people enjoy. Because this is actually the story, Richard, I've never told you the story. It's actually the story of the first time I met Monty in real life. So what happened was, in 2013, I went to Korea. What had happened was, I was going to go anywhere for like a week or something. Just the usual thing. Oh, Mecca of esports, you're a fan of StarCraft. Oh my God, I'm getting into League a bit. Maybe I can go there and do an interview with a famous player. Sadly, I didn't actually know how insane it is to try and get into the team house and get the interviews. By the way, they're never free. They're scrimming all the time. The joke is I didn't get any the first time. I actually had to go back the next year to get the interviews by making the relationships and knowing people like Susie who could get me in there. But when I went this first time, what had happened was I was planning on going anyway for like a week. And then just coincidentally, I can't remember how this happened. I think I'd maybe DM'd Monty or something like, oh, I'm going to come to Korea or something. And he just said something like, you could just stay at my house if you want. By the way, I don't even know this person. I've never talked to him at all. He maybe like did a Reddit comment once or something on an interview I'd done at the time. All I was doing at the time was those grilled interviews. I remember I wasn't even on camera at this point in time, although I was obviously someone from Counter-Strike. So I think I DM'd Monty and he just said, because was what he used to do back then, he was like, oh, if you come out here, you could just stay at my place basically for like 2 weeks or something if you want. Like there's like just sleep on a mattress on the floor. And the joke is, I went there. We'll get to the later part. I won't even tell that part of the story because basically, like me and Chaos, when he'd just been kicked out of TSM, we're both sleeping on this floor, having these mad conversations, and people were going, all jet lagged, going in and out of someone sleeping while the rest are up, then the other one sleeping, and we're all talking. And Chobra's off in his room, locked away. Anyway, that's not the story. The story that is mental is this is probably why to this day I'm doing content with Monty, because I made the craziest first impression you could ever make, Richard. You have to remember, I wasn't yet someone who'd done all my on-camera shit. I hadn't had my social.
You had no on-camera stuff. You were the voice off camera at the time,
and I was wearing all those weird hockey jerseys. And so I hadn't done my social transformation yet. Where I understood, how to like what people are vibing with, how to present yourself, what you want to, how you want to be perceived. Essentially, I was just the person who went out into the world. But what's hilarious is when I went there, first of all, on this first night, you get there and the thing where like, you could just go to sleep, or do you go out? Do you stay up? So we all, at the point, there's a whole group of expats. We all go out to some like Korean bar. We're all drinking, but like people aren't just drinking beers and talk. We'll have like proper shots, and cocktails, and other people are joining the group, and we're going from one bar to another. And eventually, you're talking to some girl about fucking Proust or some bullshit like that, and it's 3 a.m. or whatever. And then eventually it gets to the point where I was just talking to some girl, and basically I sort of got the nod of sort of like, oh shit, well, I hadn't even been trying, but I'm in here. Fucking hell. And so I go to Monty. Remember, he's never met me before. He just knows I'm some weird British character who's a bit like, reserved, but does all this really intense work. And I just go to Monty, actually, what's your address? Because I'm just going to see you next morning, mate. I'm going off with them. And so what's great is, already, Richard, even though I'm not at all that person, especially at this era of my life, I'm looking like some fucking roving bard figure who just walks in, and fucking, all right, you.
I'm used to this, by the way, so I'm just like, all right, cool,
sure,
whatever, do your thing.
But then this is the best part. The next day, because I'd arrived, I was so cheap back then. I didn't have much money. I wasn't making much money from esports. I'm arriving the day before we go to the OGN League of Legends finals. And so I remember at those OGN League of Legends finals, like put it this way, I didn't even see game 3 of the 3-0. I was hidden in the press room under a folding table, just trying to get sleep for like 20 minutes. Because by the way, I haven't been to sleep yet. I was just up all night, enjoying her company and fucking sobering up or whatever, and drinking about 8 million Gatorades or whatever, and all that. And mate, this movie could just be my experience of that fucking 24 hours. But anyway, I always thought Monty has gotten the most unfair, totally skewed perception of who I am the first time I've ever met him. This isn't actually who I am at all. But I tell you what, it's sort of like the bullshit first impression you'd want to make if you wanted to be cool.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I know. Though it was not. Look, later I became similar.
But that's why people go to these places.
It is,
right?
Yes, absolutely.
Because you can do things.
Well, there's a reason I came back and lived there, buddy. Yeah, absolutely. Don't worry about me.
You can do things that are out of character for you because there's never going to be any ramifications, really, unless you like commit crimes, which they do. Obviously, there are ramifications of this one.
Sure.
But you can be pretty degenerate, and it won't. You can just leave later, and it will never follow you. Right, it will never follow you, and you will be you'll be untethered because you don't have to worry about what other people think of you or anything really. So,
by the way, you could even to tie it back into the film. I think that's part that isn't coincidental, Monty. The fact that this fucked up person who is a weird degenerate who knows what he's doing with his life and all this weird things he's had happen. The fact he's just some weird foreigner in Japan.
Also,
that's
why
not
is he
so
there?
Crazy? Yeah, he's there for some bizarre reason, right?
And also, why is he dragging his sister into it also, which is even crazier? It's like, basically all of the problems they have. Oh, I can't get work. Oh, I have to be a drug dealer or a stripper. If they just went back to America, they wouldn't have these fucking problems. You could get just a normal ass job. And like Alex says, you can also get jobs there that are normal. Right, you could
also just work as an English teacher, work as a barista. He's like, I have to sell drugs now. Can I get loads of pills, please?
He literally says it as well in one of the flashbacks. She says to him, "Why don't you just get a normal job?" And he's like, "People who have jobs are slaves, man."
There you go. See what I mean? By the way,
but I'm not a slave to these drugs.
Just because your experience is his POV.
But I'm not a junkie.
Don't think this guy is cool and like, I hope he makes it. Fuck this guy. Mate. Let him go through the fucking torturous hellscape. Let's see where this shit goes.
There we go. This is the good stuff. else would brutal this to me. Probably wants a blowjob. It's disgusting. Who do they think I am anyways? I know I'm not a judge.
Yeah. I mean, you know, so there is, like, by the way, as I said, the acting's terrible, the dialogue's terrible, but there is a kind of authenticity about the...
I don't think the acting...
I want to ask you
something.
something. Isn't it almost, though, not acting? It's almost like anti-acting. It's almost like you are just observing.
Do you want to know
think about this.
What it
Acting,
reminds me?
on some level, is performance. You're doing something like extra. This is like you are just weirdly watching a CCTV of people normally just talking in a room or something.
I mean, half the movie is just flying around in the sky.
Yeah,
that gets in its own way disorientating and addictive, though, and weird and fucking. Yeah, by the way, what's weird is it's really long, but you settle into that idea pretty quick. Like maybe 20 minutes in, you get that that's what you're doing.
The acting in this reminds me of the Larry Clark movie Kids.
Okay.
In the sense that it had some talented newcomers. Like, because that's the movie that, like, launched Chloe Sevigny and I think Rosario Dawson as well came out of that film. But, like, all of the extras were just trash. Because they were just real people. And, like you say, it's almost anti-acting. And, yeah, that's basically what's going on here. But it doesn't have that authentic note of conversation. It's like, that drug dealer guy, by the way, like, he's such a weird.
He's ridiculous,
dude.
isn't he?
He's like his voice is like an octave too high almost. He's like, "Oh, you like that MDMA? Well, you can." I'm sounding like Stewie from fucking Family Guy. You like that MDMA? That's fine. You keep it. We'll talk about payment later, man. I'm like, what is happening in this scene, right? Like, who is this cat? Like, it is so ridiculous, the whole thing.
A little DMT. Just light her up. Bit longer, come on, real go for it. That's just, you want to be careful that you might drop it and you might fucking burn yourself. So if you want, I can help you out next time. I can hold it for you.
But also, just in terms of the broad archetypes of these people, I know people exactly like that. Like I mean,
they're really stereotypical, which is hard because this is what I said earlier when the characters suck. Is that the characters are actually deeply uninteresting and also shitty people. So I don't really care about them in any capacity.
Yeah, it's everything. You could run down the list, right? So we've got like the American who's a dilettante drug fiend who's just doing whatever he wants out there. Then he's got like some fucking friend who's some sort of French Mediterranean type figure who's
pseudo intellectual.
Then maybe I fuck your sister after you read their book. Then he's going and he's got like the rich kid who's just the rich kid with the big fucking broccoli head who's like, don't fuck my mom. And the dad, by the way, I love the dad. The dad, I met her in a go-go bar actually and then got a few diseases off from that. She's going like, well, just more peace.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the guy who marry or whatever is just like the Japanese piece of shit. Hey, leave my sister alone, man. Don't be a bad brother. I'm going to fuck your sister. Like, ridiculous. These are like one-note characters, mate. They're ridiculous.
Yeah, but I will say, like, I know one-note people in real life. I knew.
Yeah, but we don't make
exactly
movies about them, Richard. Come on.
You might make movies about their fucking death dreams. Yeah, you might. They might have something.
Yeah, wouldn't an interesting person's death dream be more interesting? I think that's a core issue with this, but.
No, I don't know. I wouldn't even make that.
No, here's why I'm sort of vibing with Richard on this one. To me, almost the fact that these are just any old shitters almost makes the experience more. But like, I know what you mean, Monty, but I don't really want to see like Isaac Newton's life, or whatever the fuck. That'd be too.
They are only profound.
Yeah, that'd take me
in
out
death.
of it in some way. Yeah,
they are only profound in death. That is where all their profundity was stored.
The real horror of this movie is that I have to be Oscar, and then I have to be the reincarnated version of Oscar with the shitty parents that I know he has. That's the real horror.
Don't forget, you were also a globule of cum for a while there, Monty. So don't ever forget.
I was
you were
a Frenchman's cum.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's an experience that no other movie can deliver unto you. Have you ever been a Frenchman seaman? No, you haven't. So there you go. Now you have. But I mean, back to just notions of this as a horror. I obviously get the sense, Monty, that you like. I don't want to say didn't enjoy the movie. I won't put words.
It's not supposed to be enjoyable. To be fair,
he didn't lean into
Yeah.
it all like he was supposed to.
No.
But
Did
you find it horrifying at points?
Yeah,
That would be
for
the
sure.
question I would ask.
Look, I don't dislike this movie. I just think there are things that could have been done to make this like really good that weren't done, and I do think the length is an issue with it. What I do think is brilliant about this movie is conceptually it's super interesting to think about, super interesting to talk about. What I said earlier was
he's doing the night moves, defense. He's pulling the night moves on
no,
me.
I enjoyed watching this much more than Night Moves.
Okay, wow. Okay, all right, fair enough. That's cool. I'll
My
take
enjoyment of it doesn't have anything to do with the artistic merit of it, right? The problem with Night Moves is that Night Moves requires significant genre film knowledge to even begin to appreciate, which isn't true of this movie.
I like the way, for me, even though you guys liked it, because I'll never rewatch it. I don't give a fuck. Unless we do this arc where you force me to rewatch it. That's the fucked up part about this concept of the show for some reason. But if you do, I will strike back. And
when you die,
Duncan,
you will just be watching Night Moves.
It's the fact that even though this is
again.
Richard's least favourite part, my enduring memory will be the bullshit sort of like, even though I've totally overplayed it in my mind, the whole thing of like, and that's one of my night moves. And then it's all like, even though that's not, I've built that up in my mind so much. You know?
Literally never happened.
but it conceptually happened.
I know it should have happened. That should have been the werewolf brick of that film.
Now you're on the fucking DMT dream.
Anyway.
It's like you're just reliving a line Gene Hackman didn't say over and over again.
That's
what I do think we should talk about is just the technical abilities of this movie. First off, right from the start, the opening credits, fucking awesome. The way they portray Tokyo, beautiful, awesome. I love the fact that they have the model city with the black lights and then do the neon in the actual film. The fact that it is filmed from POV, sometimes in very difficult ways, such as when he's looking in the mirror and the blinks of the black on the camera are synced to his eyes in the mirror, is just really fascinating.
Oh, by the way, you can
work.
tell Gaspar Noé just lived in the fucking editing software for who knows how fucking long on this one.
I do think it's intelligent that they switch to third person for the flashbacks, so you know what the flashbacks are. It's a really
as if you tried selling it as this is Counter-Strike, then it's Fortnite. As all the kids are going to be, all right, that's sick. Yeah,
hey,
sick, bro,
I know
sick,
our audience.
Sick for real. I'm in.
Look, that's just how it is. Like, but
this is not pussy.
I know, and then this is the film they're watching.
So, and then just
Money, this is Cap. It's not good.
The planning.
This is trash.
It may be too long in a lot of these scenes when they're just kind of flying around, but the planning and storyboarding you would have it go from room to room like this or through cars. Like, I don't even know how they did this, but it is incredible inside the people's bodies.
That's why I say it's like a video game. The effect of zooming in is mega.
Oh yeah,
it's fucking so good.
But like
2009 film.
Especially the scene at the end where they're going into a car and then they're going through all the rooms of the Love Hotel and then they're going inside the bodies is just phenomenally technically and artistically. And I do credit the cinematography and Noé as the director.
You will also never forget that scene where you just see the dick.
The jump scare with the dick. Because
here's the thing, it's the definition of an uncompromising shot. You literally can't look away. There's nothing but a dick coming at you like that.
Just as
literally coming at you.
As a technical achievement and as a vision that went from storyboarding to the final product, and as the act of planning as a director, this is amazing. It is.
Unsung hero is Mark Carroll. Mark Carroll was the co-director of another fantastic 90s movie, Delicatessen. He co-directed it with Jean-Pierre Jeunet. And he was brought in specifically for the set design of Tokyo. And also he handled all the flashback scenes as well. And if you know Mark Carroll, he doesn't work in films anymore. He hasn't done anything since this movie. Okay. This was his last involvement in film, even in a storyboarding capacity. But he's like a comics guy now. I think he does. He does like French comics. But like, if you've ever seen like the stunning visual style of Delicatessen, he also worked. I think he was the guy that helped with Alien Resurrection, which not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination.
Visually good though, certainly.
Visually did have its own
Yeah.
distinct style, didn't
Absolutely.
it? And so yeah. So Mark Carroll.
Maybe don't put that baby alien in there. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
No.
And
That.
you know,
In many ways, that baby alien at the end, the baby alien human hybrid, is the dick of that movie.
This reminds me of something. This is a quick aside, but when I was doing on Nerd Legion, we're doing the 1980s fantasy film marathon. So there's this movie called Dragon Slayer, which is like shockingly good. And so the cinematography.
What series are you guys watching where you would ever say that? It's actually good.
It is actually. Anyway,
No, it's the idea you're watching such trash movies.
That's
Ollie.
true.
It's actually not.
That's true.
Worth
Most of them
watching.
are trash. But this one I had never seen, but there was this guy who did the cinematography for that named Derek Van Lint, who also was the cinematographer for Aliens, or for Alien, the first Alien movie with Ridley Scott. And he does great cinematography in both of these films. And then they offered him Blade Runner, and he just pieced out and retired forever.
Nice.
So just as
Fair
an aside.
enough, man. But yeah, I mean, like, I think even if you didn't want to get into the narrative aspects of the movie, this movie looks like nothing you've ever seen. I mean, Gaspar Noé said his favorite movie of all time was 2001. He always wanted to find a way. He always wanted to find a way to make something similarly resonant. And obviously, this is his attempt at this. He also described Irreversible. He said ultimately, like, he wanted to do like a hit and run commercially successful movie so he could film this. This was like his big passion project. And of course, it was a total, like, an abject failure. I don't even remember this being released in cinemas in the UK. It must have been. It must have had like at least 1 week in there.
It'll have been like the foreign film that was just like for a week in London or something, though, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, but this is the problem, is that sometimes when people have these like passion projects that take a long time to make, they end up being. We talked about this a bit with Nosferatu as well, with Eggers, which is that I just feel like this movie is overloaded, because sometimes when you have too much time to like think about things, you're like, but what if I added this and then added this and then added this, and it just, this movie is bloated, and I think maybe that's one of the reasons why.
I mean, but Roger Ebert, I think, was still alive when this movie was released. By the way,
I thought he died in 2009.
No, I think he died in
I think it was a few years later.
2012, yeah.
Something like
I think I did find a quote about it, but it's
2013. You guys are right.
Yeah. I don't think he actually ever reviewed it.
I mean, why would you? This was not a movie that would have been really even released, like you say, in a cinema for longer than a week.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, like, I think he did say something. He did see this movie. I just don't think he felt compelled to review it. I couldn't find a review. Hang on, what's this then? Oh, is this one of his last lists? Best films.
Here, I got it. In December 2012, it's a column called TIFF number 3, some of the films that I've seen. And so these are blurbs about smaller movies.
Imagine describing it that way.
Here we go, I got it.
Some of the films
I will read it. Enter the Void by Gaspar Noé of France is a nearly unendurable in-depth investigation of a very shallow idea. Death is a shallow idea to you, Roger? Even that's fascinating.
There you go.
He's just describing the movie. Hold on, I haven't seen this yet. If Noé's camera plunges into a vortex once, it does so 100 times, into white holes, black holes, psychedelic kaleidoscopic holes, over and over and over again, representing the delightful diversity of the void. The visuals might have been juicier if he had known about fractals, which I think he did. The film includes obligatory genitals
How weird,
of
yeah.
both
Gaspar
genders.
Noé can fucking have more drugs than you, Roger Ebert, mate. Fucking hell.
Yeah, this is
He's
mostly
like Danny the Headhunter from Withnell and I.
It's mostly just a description. Yeah, it's not actually.
Yeah.
He doesn't really dive into it.
Yeah,
Besides
that's
the
a shame.
nearly unendurable in-depth investigation of a very shallow idea is the only real line he has here.
I would have really liked to have heard his thoughts on this particular film because it's kind of interesting. Like Ebert definitely I
am low-key
said,
addicted to know what he knows. I've
Yeah,
become some
I know.
half of validation. I need to know what he knows about the film. I
But
don't know
it's
why
like
I need to know.
he always sets himself up as if he's some sort of guy that's like, hey, I can fuck with the classics, but like, watch that edgy foreign cinema as well. But like, it's just like you're just such a normie, you know what I mean? Like, such a normie. But yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame. I couldn't find a definitive review either from him. So I guess it was just one of those movies where he watched it and then just was like, right, well, I've seen the dick.
Well, probably also he was busy reviewing films that people would would read about.
To
By
be
the
fair,
way,
there is no review that can make you go and see
No.
this movie.
By the way, another thing about this film is this is one of those films where, again, look, I'm not mad. I don't recommend it to people because, again, like that could even ruin a friendship. But it's more like one where part of me did think, there's something really there's something brilliant in this film, and there is something about this that, like, if someone asked me for something around this area, like the joke is, if someone did say they watch Shaken Bladder, maybe I'd say this is a film you might want to check out. But I have to say, it's even though I would say all those things, I waited many, many years before I rewatched this film. Like, it's not when I'm going to rush back and you could go decades between this one, mate.
This I think is my third viewing, probably my last.
You don't really need to see it that many times. It's all good.
I mean, it's designed as an experience, which I think is interesting in and of itself.
I also do think it is mega the first time too.
Yeah,
and you don't know what's coming and where it can even go. Holy shit!
Just simply because it look, it's a cliche, but this truly is like no film you've seen before or since. I haven't seen anyone try to emulate this. I haven't seen someone go, that Enter the Void. Wouldn't it be cool if we did that, but like we changed a few little elements of it? There's no lesson to learn from this. Well, there's two lessons, right? And
the reboot's going to be really sad. Like
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
exactly. Like re-enter the void.
Terrence Howard plays,
Re-enter the void, where it goes backwards, and it's an anti-climax in the sense that the cum shoots back into the dick, and then but the lesson you learn from this is that Gaspar Noé is a fucking absolute legend of film and wanted to make a movie so outlandish.
He obviously doesn't conceive of film in any of the traditional ways we understand, like storytelling, setting up, acting, performing. This guy has some totally different. That's why, sadly, again, the term visionary and genius just beaten to oblivion by dickheads. So they use it for like Tim Burton or something, for fuck's sake, like that. Which is, look at the haircut. Whereas that's the thing. This guy literally is thinking of like things you can do with a camera that no one's even trying to do.
I mean, I will say, if you did enjoy this film, right, and there's going to be someone who's watched this and gone, wow, this is like actually fucking, mind expanding. He did revisit the genre of psychedelic horror again with a later film he made called Climax, which, obviously Duncan's seen it, I've seen it. It's basically about like a group of people go to an after party. It was made in 2018. It's quite a recent movie by comparison to the ones we do here. But anyway, they go to an after party and someone has spiked the punch with LSD, and basically it's just everything that sort of, without giving spoilers, all the things that like kind of degenerate from that point. Because everyone's tripping at this after party, so what ends up happening, and that is arguably in parts like way more uncompromising than this. It has, if you can wrap your head around this, it has a 42-minute take, like a 42-minute single long take.
That's cool
in the film.
I mean, Noé is very technically skilled. Like,
Monty, I'm not exaggerating. If you watch the film he made, Love, it is like it could be. Here's the thing: if you took the sex out, it could be a Hollywood film with very serious performances. But when the characters in the movie, for Marines have sex, it is just porn. You're just watching them actually fuck.
Yeah,
And what's
it's just-
amazing is they're simultaneously actors and doing and so I agree with Richard. It isn't pornography. You're actually watching like a couple have sex and like how and then when he cheats with someone else, you're seeing how that dynamic's different and how he has sex with her differently. But then the normal scenes of people talking and the usual back and forth. And this is what I mean by this guy. It's not like I don't even think he wants to be in Hollywood, bro. He's trying to do something different with film that no one else is even imagining you can do. And like I say, I don't think he's doing that for shock value. There's another thing I do not believe Gaspar Noé sits down and goes, I'll do that. He's not making fucking Hostel. You know, he's not sitting down going, I'm going to do some crazy shit.
This doesn't feel like shock.
No, he's got some idea of like, I want to put on camera something that no one else can, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you want, again, a good comparison, I remember watching The Idiots way back when, the Lars von Trier,
yeah.
Yeah, which obviously I love Lars von Trier. He's like just
another very transgressive filmmaker.
Yeah, exactly, and uncompromising as well. And in this, the premise of the movie is it's about a group of people who they hate the bourgeois. You know, they're so cool and other and outside of it, so they come together and they basically say, like, on certain days we will act as if we are mentally disabled, right? And so they go into these social situations and they're always trying to like one up it, and people treat them as if they are genuinely disabled. Sometimes it's physical disabled as well. And anyway, there's a scene in that where people have sex, and Lars von Trier just hired two pornographic actors and just did a close-up on the genitals. So you're just watching actual full penetrative sex in a movie, and that's how he got around it. He just hired two adult entertainers and somehow got this past censors in Denmark. And so obviously the movie Thorin's talking about, well, look, same thing. It's just fucking, you know, and you can deal with that or you cannot deal with that. But Duncan's absolutely right. If you take the hardcore sex scenes out of that movie, it's relatively conventional by Gaspar Noé's standards. Climax is none of those things. Climax is basically into the void without it. Instead of it being a death dream, it's more like a fucking saturated in acid bad trip brought to life at a house party you can't leave.
Here's why I like that with this movie was included. One, it does just show you how crazy this genre can be. And then two, I think a lot of people, again, they'll watch it once, they won't need to watch it again. Maybe they're not that interested in more, but there will be that one weirdo. You're going to fucking love all his films, mate. Just get loaded up. Every film's completely different. There's not even that many themes between them. Every film, it's like the guy thought up a new concept for a film.
Yeah, and like it's like you hit the nail on the head. Like, I mean, even though I would say you didn't like the movie or you would have altered the movie, Gaspar Noé is such a fantastic technical filmmaker and such an interesting guy. Like I say, it's very hard to like kind of get your head around a brilliant technical filmmaker who makes films like nobody else about topics no one else will touch, present them in a really uncompromising manner, and yet whenever he's interviewed about them, he's really dismissive of his own work, and almost to the point of like you would go up to him and be like, "Oh, I've got the meaning of the movie." It's like
it's like David Lynch, right?
Nah,
David, we talked about this in Mulholland Drive, where David Lynch appears to be very actively
Blue Velvet as well,
creating red herrings of his own commentary on his film.
Yeah.
And he was very much about the experience and not about putting things into the words. It's like the Kyle MacLachlan obituary about David Lynch that we read, where he just bounced off wanting to talk about his own works, because why the fuck would he put things into words when he could just make a movie, and the movie is the piece of art he wanted to put out, right?
Yeah, and this is like why I don't know about you guys, and I don't know about our audience, but like you are served up so much fucking lukewarm, tepid Hollywood slop on a day-to-day basis that looks the same with that CGI
and everyone tells you everyone's a visionary and everything's like a film, everything's an experience. Like I said, all the cliches don't do
none of that's true. You know, I mean, put it this way, I came back, this will date the episode for people, but I came back like 2-3 days ago from watching 28 Years Later in the cinema. It's been absolutely lauded, heralded as like this great film, one of the films of the year. It's been very divisive with some of the online critics, but like a lot of these online critics only view movies through this like narrow lens of like, you know, whatever their shtick is, like the culture war or whatever it might be, and they don't really understand how to critique film or how to even assess it and compare it to other works, you know. But I will say this, like, I mean, that is a movie is being like, the way people are talking about that movie is as if it broke some sort of mold. Wow, Danny Boyle's done something so insane with this scene and and what does he mean about this at the end? That ending's so tonally incongruous to the rest of the film. You don't know what like Danny. It's such a normie film compared to like something like this, which is going to absolutely like fucking blow your mind. Like it is like nothing. Yeah. There is no comparison point to this. Like I say, when we reach for comparison, we're talking about a scene in 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's like the closest like we can maybe get to what this movie is.
I saw the Phoenician Scheme yesterday, and it was literally. Exactly
every other
what you think it will be.
Film, exactly,
it was just
it
was literally exactly the Wes Anderson film you expect.
The joke
to be
is
him
Wes
at this
Anderson
point in his career.
is the guy who will be replaced by AI. That's the AI prompt. Make a Wes Anderson film, and then it would be like that.
Yes.
yeah, correct. Whereas someone like this. You can't replicate this. This couldn't be replicated. An AI couldn't make this. I couldn't give. Put it this way: if I pick your favorite filmmaker, right? Like out of anyone throughout history, imagine them with this script and what they would do with it. Like how many top directors couldn't handle this material, would have to walk away from it, would have to reduce it in some way, would be, can we have a voiceover or some of the like cheap narrative mechanic? No. Gaspar Noé is just, this is it. It is filmmaking and film viewing as experience, which is perfect because ultimately this is about the experiential. It is about what you feel, what you see, what you observe as you die and in the post-death dreamlike state. It is about taking copious amounts of unbelievably strong drugs that, by the way, might convince you that there are other dimensions and other realms, and it will feel very real. And maybe sometimes you might even believe, holy shit, it's not that the drug's telling me they're real, they just are real, and the drug is the mechanism through which I can engage and interface with these other dimensions. This is the this is the closest you can get to a heavy drug trip without taking drugs at all.
And this movie is very good. Like, my criticisms of it, I think it's still worth 100% the experience of doing it. It's fascinating. It is a good piece of art. But imagine for a moment if you had Gaspar Noé direct the part of Dune where Paul becomes... Paul basically has his shamanic initiation, right?
Imagine bringing Gaspar Noé in for that.
Agony or whatever it is.
Yeah. He's like, okay, well, first of all, it has to be 3 hours long. But
that's what we lost in Dune. Like, and honestly, in my opinion, the David Lynch Dune is better for that scene than the Villeneuve version of Dune. But like, that is the scene where it should be this, right? And a lot of Dune should be this, basically. But we're robbed of that because Villeneuve didn't know how to do that. And it is hard to do. It is extremely hard to do. Villeneuve knows how to do many things. That is not one of them. But the movie Dune and the story of Dune is significantly weaker for not having that moment. That's the problem,
You've identified the fundamental issue with the structural nature of filmmaking. 99% of the time, for almost any narrative, you want a Villeneuve, right? But for that 1% that's really crazy and otherworldly, you need a Noé. That's the reality of filmmaking, and unfortunately, a Villeneuve, he can't ever be a Noé, but a Noé certainly.
That's all right. So I'll just slide this in there. They don't have a director for God Emperor of Dune yet.
I mean,
isn't this the guy you want for that?
I mean, look, he would be perfect. There's a few other directors I would definitely throw out there. I mean, look, the sad reality is, unfortunately, there is this psychedelic aspect to Dune that never is going to be tapped into by normie Hollywood. That's just not going to happen. It's hilarious considering the central premise is, the entire our society is entirely held up by a drug that makes you unbelievably prescient to astrally project your mind through time and space. But we're not gonna present any of that in the movie as text.
It's so horrible.
Yeah. But I mean, look, I'll definitely say this. Out of all of the representations of drug trips I've ever seen committed to cinema, this is the most realistic, probably, I've seen. And also, crucially, regardless of whether or not it rings as authentic, it is certainly the least embarrassing. Because when you see people try and present drug trips in media, it's very, very bad. You know, it's really bad and really cringe. And you can tell a lot of the time. It's like, yeah, well, you see colours in that, don't you? And like, yeah, it's a bit more to it than that. But I mean, look, I don't want to move away from the arc. I want to say this for me remains a horrifying and disturbing film. There's been a lot of laughs. We're laughing because we're on the other side. We've come through the Tesseract right now.
No one's laughing in the middle of this.
Yeah. You're not laughing while you're watching this. It is a deeply uncomfortable experience, I believe. I'll be interested to see, because there's always going to be that one fucking guy who thinks he's like the Viking berserker in the comments when this episode comes out. Who's going to be like, well, didn't even feel disturbed for a second. What the fuck? And the dick at the end. So, you know, there's going to be that guy. But I think most people will feel very uncomfortable watching this, because ultimately you are being confronted with your own mortality and what it's going to be like. What is it going to be like in those final moments as you fade out? And is it going to be like this? Is it going to be like something else? Nobody knows. Nobody can communicate that.
Also, I don't know if we can put the penis jump scare in this, but you know what we can do is put the sound of the penis jump scare in this.
I mean,
the fluid piston pumping of the penis, which somebody had the sound design. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, also, by the way, we haven't even talked about that. Fantastic sound design. Unironically, fantastic sound design, visually impressive. I mean, all of that stuff is perfect. It's exactly what you want from a movie like this. Movie viewing as experience. Now, I know a lot of people are going to bounce right off this.
You don't say.
Like, obviously, but for those that don't, I mean, like, this is one of those films that it's like, it's definitely got the potential to be life-changing, I think. Like, you can't say that about every film, you know. Ben Affleck in Pearl Harbor isn't life-changing. You know, like fucking Iron Man isn't life-changing, you know. Watching this for the first time certainly can be, which is why, you know, all the caveats are there about be careful about the environment you watch this in. I genuinely believe that if you were having a bad trip and watching this at the same
it'd be a really bad idea.
Yeah.
What I love is, like I say, Jacob's Ladder is like you're still somewhat in normie Hollywood. You're going a bit out there with some visuals. This one, you're already like, right, well, this is how far it can go. And then Mandy, okay, halfway between the two. But what we're showing you is this arc is no holes fucking barred. So just get ready. Get ready, mate.
I mean,
get ready.
The next one, because it's a Ken Russell movie, is it Mandy next or Altered States?
Altered States
next.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Altered States episode is going to be very interesting, because it's basically about a guy who like literally discovers another plane of existence while he's in a sensory deprivation tank, doing loads of drugs. Yeah, good. Because I think this is the movie I said that we had to do. So this is like this is my pick. But also as well, that movie's all about like schizophrenia and all that. So is it more extreme than this? Probably not, because that was, again, it got a pretty much a conventional cinematic release, but it also bombed at the cinema. So, you know, it's in good company. I think pretty much all of these movies didn't do well commercially, even the ones that were critically acclaimed. So people just aren't ready. Normies can't handle this shit. And certainly Enter the Void is just like nothing else out there. So
sounds good. All right. Next week, Altered States, and then Mandy. After that, we'll see you guys then.